So I was going through this week trying to figure out what kind of lesson, and I kind of wanted to make it a series. I'm going to try my best to get to a point, good point, and to continue it. And I'll give it to you in advance. It may just suddenly stop. It'll be like one of those movies, like The Lord of the Rings, where you're looking at it, and then it just stops. And you're like, what? That's it? Everything's good? But you have to come back next Sunday to get the rest of it. So again, that's just a warning out there. It may happen today. So for an introduction here, let me ask you, how many people have ever gone to now I'm talking about an in-person interview. In person, not online, because online you may have, maybe sitting in front of a screen like that and all they can see is up like this, and you got your boxers on or something, or you just got your, something like that. Well, I'm talking about fully dressed. You're like, okay, I need to go to this interview. This is the job I'm looking for, and I'm going. All right, show of hands. All right. So, next question: were you nervous? Of course. Okay, that's good. Okay, I was expecting that. Did you prepare? Okay, and that's going to be a key word today. Did you prepare at all? Okay. Did you rehearse anything? Okay. Sometimes they go through. You get some pre-interview classes that you can go through, and kind of prep for maybe the questions that they may ask. Of course, they're always going to ask you that one you just didn't study, and you may stumble over it. And see how you react on that one. Has anybody just gone in, just say, I'm not studying at all. I'm just going in and right off the cuff going for it. Ed raises his hand. Okay, all right, Jerry, that's good. You're better than I am on that one right there. So again, I was the nervous one that came in. Let's see. The next question is, how many people got that job? All right. Look at you. That's good. That's good. So obviously you did something right. Or they saw something in you, okay? Again, we're going to talk a little bit about that. How many people I hate to say, how many people were turned down for that job that you had? All right. Good. Thank you for being honest, okay? One person in here, okay? That's fine. Okay, you just trade. Okay, good, all right. Again, the word I was looking for is, were you prepared? Many of you said, yeah. I remember my daughter called me up. She said, hey, Dad, she goes, you won't believe this, but she was working in a mall, and she hadn't had that job very long, and she was going over to get coffee, and so it was just, you see a mall, there's someone on the left side and someone right in front of you. So she looked up, there's a coffee shop like right there in front of her, the business that she was working at. So she goes over there, stands in line, she gets to the counter, and this gentleman asked her what she wanted, and she said, yeah, I'd like to get this coffee. Of course, she worked at another coffee shop, so she knew the lingo. So she's going through the lingo with this guy. He's like, okay. And so he starts to prepare it. And then he does something as he's putting a top on or whatever he's making like that. And she was looking over at him, and she's like, can I ask you something? If you do it like this, she said, it works a lot better. And he goes, oh, really? He goes, he does it, and it turns out perfect. And he slides it over like that. He says, do you want a job? And no interview. That was her interview. And so I was like, and she is great at like off the cuff. If she's looking at something, she'll review it for a second. She just goes in, and it's amazing to watch her. And when she tells me those stories, I'm like, well, she did not get that from me. She got that from her mom. Okay. So every job seems to be that way, off the cuff. But some of those, and what I want to talk about is she got the job because she was confident, and also she started discussing her experience. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about confidence and experience today. So if you would turn your Bibles in to 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now this is going to be a very familiar person in here, or persons, plural, in the situation that's here. But 1 Samuel 17, verses 34 through 37. I'm going to read it. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock, and I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. The end, right? But there's more to the story. So he got the job here. It says, and Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with you. So here's King Saul. Says, okay, go. So that means he gave his seal of approval on there. Just like a job interview, he got the job at the time. But there's also, I titled this message is David's Resume. You're going to see some things in David's life here for his resume. So he got the job. Pretty simple, right? But no, that's not it. That's not the end of the story. So let's turn back to chapter 17, chapter 17, verse 1. Chapter 17, verse 1 says, now the Philistines gathered together their army to battle, and were gathered together at Shokoth, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokoth and Azekah in Ephes Dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. We're going to stop right there. Here's the battle of the Philistines, okay? And here is the Israelites on the north side, okay? And then you also have the Philistines on the south side. It says first of all, it says pitched between these two places, these two mountaintops, okay? So pitched means that these armies had their tents there, so they're going to obviously stay for a while, right? And then you also have, it says Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched theirs. So both armies on top of these hills are looking at each other, and they're pitching their tents. Okay, they're there for a while. You know, we're going to talk about what a while means here. And then it says they set the battle in array. In other words, they're in a line all the way across, and they're looking at each other. One army's looking at one, another army's looking at another. But it also says, and the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other. And there was a valley between them. So this is the valley of Elah, okay? The valley. So you have an army here, you have an army there, both looking at each other. You got the valley, okay? And notice what's in the valley here. It says, and there went out a champion. That word champion means a winner of two, actually. Which means that he's a champion and he's taken out everybody else. So he is the champion, the number one guy here, out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath. And that tells you his size here, okay? It is a very big man. If I would show you that the height of the 6 cubits from the tip of your finger here to the end of your elbow is about 18 inches, approximately 18 inches, they say. And then also a span is from the tip all the way down to about right here, okay? So if you look at, and that's 18 inches, it's a half. So 6 cubits and a half. So 6 cubits, if you multiply that, come up with 108 inches, and then you add those 9. So technically, and that's 9. So 108 inches divided by 12 is 9 feet, and a span would be 9 inches. So this man is almost 10 feet tall. Okay, And so he is out there with, again, 5 through 8, it starts talking about what he has on. In other words, that means that as he's talking about this, about 150 pounds of armor and everything that he has on. As a matter of fact, his spear, on the very tip of the spear, 15, 20 pounds, just the tip of it. Okay, this is a very large man. And then down at the very, where I'm at verse 9, it says, if he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall be our servants, and you'll serve us. So in other words, as it talks about in number 8 or verse 8, it says, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, why are you come out to set your battle in array? In other words, you're here in battle, okay? That means the army plural would go out and fight. But he said, no. Am I not a Philistine? I'm the champion. I'm calling one person out. That's what I'm doing. Not the army, one person. And if it said, if you kill me, then we'll serve you. But if I kill the person that you select, then you'll be our servants, the Philistines. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. In verse 10. Verse 11, when Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed. And what's the next two words? Greatly afraid. Okay, this had to be a big man. Okay, he was taunting them. We'll see that in a minute. And they were greatly. It says all of the Israelites there, all the army was greatly afraid. And then it comes and starts talking about David. It talks about in verse 13, he had 3 eldest sons that were in the actual army itself. And it tells about who they are, and then David as the youngest. And then 14 through 16, it says, and David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. So in other words, they followed Saul, which is King Saul, and his army. So they were in the army itself. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Pretty interesting, Bethlehem. So he went and returned from Saul. Key words. Okay, did you catch that? But David went and returned from Saul. So he's there, okay? He's there. He's seeing what's happening here, okay? Verse 16, and the Philistines drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. So if I was to give you a resume of David, okay? We haven't really talked about David, okay? We're getting ready to talk about David and his resume. So we're going to go back a little bit. Sometimes you get ready to do a resume, you start to put things, bullet points down, and you have to go way back, okay, to get some other ones to add to it. So we're going to go back to chapter 15, verse 18. Chapter 15, verse 18. And it says, and the Lord sent thee on a journey and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners of the Amalekites and fight against them until they be consumed. So here is the background of all this right there. So Prophet Samuel is saying this to King Saul and saying that the Lord sent thee on a journey. In other words, the Lord said to utterly destroy the sinners of Amalekites. Notice in 19 it says, wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord and didst fly upon the spoil and didst evil in the sight of the Lord? And then you hear, so that is Samuel's response. And then you see Saul's response and said unto Samuel, yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. Yeah, I did. I obeyed. I obeyed everything. And have gone in the way of the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took the spoil, sheep and oxen. So in other words, he's like, well, the people did that. I mean, I didn't say to do it. They went ahead and they did that. And the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed and sacrificed unto the Lord thy God at Gilgal. So I don't know about you, but if I was against an army, normally the king of that other army is the first one you go after. You either capture in this time frame, you kill the king. didn't happen, okay? So he disobeyed God. And then we see in verse 26, and Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king of Israel. Then we go to chapter 16, and the Lord said to Samuel, okay, because Samuel here in verse 35, and Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord repented that he had made Saul king over Israel. Chapter 16, verse 1, and the Lord said to Samuel, unto Samuel, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil, and go, I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided or prepared me. This is the word me. I prepared for myself a king among the sons. So here is God saying, Samuel, okay, you're weeping over Saul here because Saul is the first one. He's the first king of Israel. Okay, the children of Israel wanted a king, a physical king, instead of the Lord. Lord allowed that. Okay, you got a king. Here's Saul. And now Saul disobeyed. He disobeyed. Not just disobeyed. God said utterly destroyed these people that he hated. Okay, and Saul blatantly disobeyed. Again, it comes from the heart. Disobeyed. So then we see the sons of Jesse. And then we'll go to 16 verses 11. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all the children? Okay, he's going, for the children of Jesse, he has 8 sons. So he's going through the line. Is this the one? No, that's not the one. Is that the one, Lord? That's not the one, Lord. He kept going. He kept going. Is this the one? Nope, that's not the one. After he gets done with everybody, there's one left. And this is the question Samuel says. And Samuel said to Jesse, are here all the children? Is there anybody else? And he said, and this is Jesse, and he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, okay, so he had a reddish complexion, and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look to. I'm not sure if I put any of those on a resume, though, okay? It's good to have, though, okay? But then notice it says also, it said, and the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. So this is God's answer, okay? That is the boy I am anointing, okay? I have prepared a king. This is the one. Samuel, anoint him. So they do. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. Notice that, in the midst of his brethren. All his other brothers were there in the midst of them, and he anointed him. And then the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind. The Spirit of the Lord came upon David. So here's the Spirit on David at the time. But notice what it also says, from that day forward. So it stayed, it remained. So here's the Spirit of the Lord remained. Okay, verse 14, but there's a conjunction there. Something's happened, okay? Here's the Spirit of the Lord that is indwelling, okay, in Samuel. But then what it says for Saul, it says, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servants said unto him, behold, now an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Okay? So God had sent an evil spirit because of what he just did. Okay? Verse 16 says, let the Lord now command thy servants. Okay, and this is the servants. I think it's pretty neat about the servants. They said to Saul, and Saul's servants said unto him, behold, now an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servants, which are before thee, to seek out a man who is a cunning player of the harp, and shall come to pass, when the evil spirits from God is upon thee, and he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well. So in other words, this is the cure. Servants are like, hey, so if you find someone that can play the harp, then the evil spirits will go away. Verse 17 says, and Saul said unto his servants, provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me. So he answers, okay, that's a good idea. And in verse 18, then answered one of his servants, and behold, I have seen a son of Jesse, Bethlehemite, that is cunning and plain. So here is cunning and plain. So I put down on here, on my points, a bullet point on a resume, okay, that first of all, he's committed to his father, his family, and then also that he's multitask, not just he does one thing and that's all he does, because employers don't want just a cookie cutter, one person, they just do one thing and that's it, really good. But they're looking for other things, and he's multitask. Then it says, a mighty valiant man, a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. So prudent in matters means he's prudent in speech, so he can speak the truth. A handsome man, again, I don't know if I put that on a resume, but good. Most important, it says, the Lord is with him. Key, Lord is with him, okay? And then the question, why is the last one so important? It's because the Spirit of the Lord, he left Saul, but he did not leave David. Now he's upon David, okay? Another one, okay? Think about that as he's getting ready to go to war here. Okay, and why is Saul having an evil spirit, okay? It's because of that reason, because he utterly disobeyed. So we see that in verses 11 and 13, when Saul and Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Okay? They were greatly afraid. We just talked about it. They're greatly afraid. So here is David. Remember, we're looking for confidence and courage on this. We're going to go back to chapter 17, chapter 17, verses 16. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. And then we're going to kind of go a little quick on this. Jesse says to David, hey, go ahead. Okay, take this. Okay, take a parched corn, 10 loaves, run it to the camp of thy brethren. Okay, give it to, and then also carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of the thousands, and then look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. In other words, see how everything's going, okay? And so here they are in the trench. He gives them the food, but guess where David is? David is here. He is here, and he's watching all of this as this Philistine is now taunting them and saying, I need a leader. I need a leader that comes out. So again, we talked about comfort. We talked about courage. And then as we talked about 34 through 37, at the very end, we're going to see that it says, and when the words were heard, which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight this Philistine. Back it up to verse 29, which is the key here. And David said, what have I now done? Because his eldest brothers were kind of mocking them, kind of angered with him. Why are you here? Why are you not being with the sheep? And he says, what have I done? What have I done? Is there not a cause? Key word, is there not a cause? So for his resume that he's done here, he is committed to his father, okay? So he has gone back to, he's with Saul. He returns to his sheep in Bethlehem. So there's some type of agreement that he can tend to his sheep and also be there with Saul. He is also the armor bearer. Saul made him the armor bearer because it said he loved him. So he's a courageous man. He's fearless at this time. He is actually a teenager at the time. He's committed to his family, his father, and then he's spirit-filled. And then I just talked about earlier, he killed a lion, he killed a bear, and he rescued a lamb. So all those resumes, if you think about ancient time, and you're talking to a king here, and And the last point is, and Saul said unto David, go and the Lord be with you. Your resume is good. You have a great resume. Okay, nobody else wants to do it. Nobody else wants to volunteer. You're the man that's going to do it. In conclusion, God uses the unique gifts and preparation you already have. Okay, he had all these, and it displayed these. David didn't know he was practicing to be a king when he defended his sheep. And this is his experience. But the skills he learned as a shepherd in private were exactly what God used in public. Let's close in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for what you've done, Lord. Thank you for this lesson, Lord. Thank you for talking about David, Lord, and his courage, his commitment. He was spirit-filled, Lord. Help us to be spirit-filled. Help us to, again, be committed to our families. Help us to be committed to a church. Help us to show your love. And Lord, help us to have a biblical resume. And it's all about the heart, Lord, because you see what's in the heart, Lord. Again, thank you for loving us. Help us to be bold like David was against a giant, Lord. Help us to face those giants with courage. Thank you for all that you've done. Be with